Time to talk some basketball on this Monday edition of the Sports Max Zone. Two superstars of the NBA, part of a blockbuster three-team trade that sent shockwaves through the league at the weekend. The basketball world sent into a frenzy when it was announced that five-time All-Star guard Luka Doncic of 2024 beaten finalists, the Dallas Mavericks, had been shipped off to the Los Angeles Lakers in return for 10-time NBA All-Star Anthony Davis, the man who helped end a 10-year championship drought for the Lakers, winning in 2020. The shuffling of the superstar pack does not end there, as Sacramento Kings All-Star De'Aaron Fox has joined the forces with young French sensation and last year's Rookie of the Year Victor Wembanyama after being traded in return for two-time All-Star Zach LaVine, reuniting him with his former Chicago Bulls running mate DeMar DeRozan. Our NBA analyst, Alister joins us to discuss the latest development and what it means for the rest of the season. Well, first of all, Alister, welcome back to the Sports Max Zone. It's not often that we have the privilege of talking to you on the zone now. Let me get your reaction first to this shocking and what was a sudden development.
It was an absolute sudden development. It really kind of sent shockwaves everywhere across the world, basically globally. But of course, the epicenter of everything was in Dallas, where the fans just went crazy, and everyone's just really surprised by a very historic, monumental blockbuster trade that went down. And of course, Luka Doncic heading over to the West, heading to play with his idol, someone who he's totally admired in LeBron James. He's now over there in Los Angeles, and Anthony Davis, of course, on the heading the other way to Dallas. And yeah, it really just sent shockwaves for everyone. I was up really early on a Sunday morning, 5 o'clock. I have no idea why that was. Looked at my phone and I saw the alerts, and I was totally flabbergasted. And so was every single person who replied to Shams Charania's tweet that went out. So yeah, it's changed the landscape. It's major shockwaves for everyone. And it's going to be really interesting to see how things develop on the court and before the trade deadline comes on Thursday as well.
Yeah, before we talk more about it, though, there's a general feeling that nothing happens at the Los Angeles Lakers without LeBron James is endorsing it. I saw some sources reporting that LeBron was surprised by the move, suggesting that he, like all of us, didn't know anything about it.
And that's usually very hard to believe. Everything that happens around LeBron James and his sphere, his circle, you would expect him to have some sort of inkling of what's happening. And I sent the producers a little tweet that I put up based on a podcast that I listened to on the weekend, where B.J. Armstrong, former Chicago Bulls champion, three-time champion, was on the Hoop Genius podcast over here in the UK. And he said, someone knew this was happening. You can see the tweets up there. I have yet to know this to be an untrue, that, you're going to communicate with your best player. Either AD knew this because he was the best player, or the other guy, quote unquote, other guy, of course, being LeBron James, knew this. But someone knew this was happening. And, I found that really interesting because BJ himself, of course, he was a player. He was a champion, like I said. He played with Michael Jordan. He was a GM for the Chicago Bulls at one point in time. So he kind of knows the intricacies of what really happens behind the scenes, and, speaking to your best player to get his approval and everything. So I think it's very hard to believe that LeBron actually didn't know about this. But if he actually didn't, this is a major move by Rob Pelinka, trying to probably establish some control of what happens within the Los Angeles Lakers moving forward. He's trying to secure their future, and LeBron being out of that conversation is really interesting. And hats off to Rob Pelinka for being able to do that, because LeBron is not someone that anyone expects not to know what's going on around him, and not being able to kind of smooth out his way and navigate it how he wants to.
Yeah, and when you think about the future, as you made that point, Alister, we're thinking about the future of the LA Lakers. I mean, LeBron is, of course, winding down. How does Luka Doncic fit into this setup? Because LeBron loves the ball, Luka loves the ball. He's coming into this new setup. And one of the reasons, of course, for Luka Doncic being involved in this deal is the fact that his team felt as if, he was not paying attention to his body. He was a bit overweight when it came to conditioning. So now how does this Luka Doncic set himself into this Lakers setup?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And I think, like we've had with conversations about Joel Embiid, about Zion Williamson, we've spoken about their maturity and being able to be a professional and do things to kind of keep your body right and at the optimal, place, to be able to play professional basketball. But, whether it's where Joel Embiid and Zion Williamson are concerned, these guys are like chronically always injured. This is not the situation with Luka Doncic. And I think what probably has set in with Luka in Dallas was a level of complacency. This was a guy who, from the time he was like 14, 15 years old, he's been the star everywhere he went. Of course, he played in Spain for Real Madrid before he moved over to the NBA, the Slovenian team, everyone kind of, everything happens around him. He's the circle of that team. And coming to Dallas, of course, Nowitzki retired and the franchise was put in his hands. And, I think after 6-7 years in the league, he's kind of become a little bit complacent. He knows what his skills, his talents and everything. And he's probably not, taking care of himself as much. We saw, this very viral video that went when they advanced to the finals that Michael Finley came and took away a beer can from him, whilst he was trying to celebrate, their Western Conference Finals win. So him going to the Lakers is going to be really interesting, juxtaposed to LeBron James, who is known for being, a machine and taking care of his body, spending the amount of money that he does. But let's remember, like I said, it's not something that should be lost on anyone. LeBron James was Luka Doncic's idol, growing up, and he's going to see LeBron do things, very up close. And, LeBron is going to probably be in his ear a lot more so, and probably going to get him into a mental capacity and condition for him to be able to perform at a high level. And, he's going to want to kind of show people, Dallas made an awful mistake in this trade. And he's probably going to come out, with a bang, and he's probably going to get his conditioning up. So I think there's a lot of explosiveness to come from Luka after this trade.
Yeah, and on the back of that discussion, let's talk about now the AD pair with Kyrie Irving. How does that one work out? Who benefits?
Oh, yeah. I thought that trade was really interesting. And of course, you see the people in Dallas, outside the stadium protesting and everything. And, I even came with my little, Texas outfit, my bolo tie, and my little cowboy hat as well, to be totally honest with you, because I see those people down in Dallas just messing around and hooting and hollering, really, protesting this trade. And, it's really, really difficult to see how Nico Harrison, the GM of this team, has actually, been slated for this. And, really and truly, it's one of two things. He's either psychotic for doing this trade or an actual genius because he got ahead of something which he thought was going to be very problematic for the franchise moving forward. So I think this is going to be really interesting. I think Dallas fans need to calm down, be a little less emotional about this. Of course, Luka is a major thing to lose, but AD himself is no slouch. This is a top 75 all-time Hall of Fame type player. Won a championship in 2020. Yes, he's 31, 32 years old, but he has remarkable numbers across the board once he's healthy. We saw how good he was last season. And this season, he's missed a few games this year, but he's a really impactful person. And I think playing alongside Kyrie Irving, a lob threat, defensively, and everything that he brings to the table, if he could stay healthy, I think is going to be really instrumental. And there's one more thing in terms of Nico Harris. He said, he believes defense wins championships. Yeah. So maybe he thought that, the finals appearance last year was probably the peak for the team as it was constructed. And he believes a more defensive input into the team with the magnitude of someone like Anthony Davis will probably be able to get them over the hump, whether it be within the next 3 to 4 years, which he classes as his long-term future for this team. Yeah. So let's see what happens. But I actually think it's a really good balanced team now, and fans should just kind of hold off and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think we're forgetting Jason Kidd, who leads this team, and of course he and Anthony Davis has a relationship when he was involved in the coaching setup of the Lakers in 2020, I believe, when they won the championship that year. So again, the relationships are very, very crucial, because when you think about the setup, it's not as if Anthony Davis is going into an unfamiliar setup. A lot of pieces in the puzzle that he's very familiar with.
That's it. So you have Jason Kidd, you have Jared Dudley, who's an assistant coach there, who was a teammate of his. Nico Harrison, of course, the GM, is someone who works as an agent with Nike and is really close to Anthony Davis as well. So he's actually coming into a little bit of a family setup. It's a little bit familiar. And no state income taxes in Dallas is also something really nice to not have to worry about as well. So he's going to be in a more familiar familiar sort of environment in Dallas with those guys around him, and a magnificent point guard in Kyrie Irving, who's turned his career around since he's kind of got into Dallas. So I think, that tandem, once they get a little bit of chemistry, hopefully that could work. Of course, Anthony Davis likes to play power forward and not center. Derek Lively, of course, is injured at the moment. Daniel Gafford as well has a few little injuries going on as well. But he will be able to shift into that preferential power forward position. And I think, we'll be able to see a lot more explosiveness and, just more from Anthony Davis in his preferred position. And when they won the championship in 2020, there was Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. So he was able to do that as well. So he's in a position that he wants to be in. And I think that will kind of pay dividends for the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, and while I was preparing for this show, Alister, I was listening to the reactions from different players, right? How they reacted to this, because it happened when they were asleep. They woke up to the news. Depends on whatever time they woke up, they found out, right? I was listening to Kevin Durant, somebody who has been in this business for quite some time, very experienced. I feel like he's seen it all. Well, until this happened, so now he's actually seen it all. And his response was, that players are held to a different level of loyalty and accountability as opposed to organizations. And I felt like that was such a serious statement coming from him because, he basically saying when you're part of a team, you're expected to be loyal and, do what you have to do in the benefit of the team and the organization, but making the point that, it's not really the same when it comes to the organization and, of course, doing business.
And that's unfortunate because what Kevin Durant is actually saying is absolutely true. Players are, fans kind of slate them for, being disloyal and asking for trades and doing all the sorts of things that they do. But, it's the cruel world of commercialism and business. Businesses are always going to look out for themselves. There's a loyalty to the business first and then the assets and the players second. And unfortunately, that's what happens in the NBA. This is the cruel world of, where a bottom line means everything. And, if you're in a situation where your main asset, the one that's your business is hinged around in Luka Doncic, you as the general manager believes, he is probably jeopardizing how far your business could go with how he is probably, based on reports, and like allegedly is being said, is being lackadaisical with his tools, his body. You're going to probably want to kind of do something and reel back, something to kind of save your business. And I think that's the position that Nico Harrison was kind of put in. And I think it's really interesting as well to see that in his press conference with Jason Kidd sitting right next to him, you didn't see any flinching or any sort of disagreement with how Nico Harrison explained the situation from Jason Kidd. I think he probably had seen a little bit of too much maybe of, Luka Doncic maybe not doing enough or having a work ethic that was questionable. And, they thought, and like Nico Harrison said, the governor of the team has put a lot of trust in him to be able to run this organization properly. And I think between the both of them, they thought that this was something that needed to happen because they could see the demise of the team coming forward. And it's really difficult to say because Luka is outstanding. He's a top 5, top 10 player in this league, a superstar by all accounts, and you're getting rid of him at such a young age. But I think they believe that maybe he was too complacent. He probably needed a real major shakeup, and this is what happened. This is what happens when someone doesn't believe in you anymore. And it's really unfortunate, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Yeah, and Alister, with these trades, sudden trades and proliferation of trades, would you suggest that it impacts the destination options for Jimmy Butler, who is in conflict with the Miami Heat at the moment?
I don't actually think it will affect it too much, to be totally honest with you, because Pat Riley is a person who walks to the beat of his own drum. I don't think he's going to be fazed necessarily by what has happened with this trade. But I think a lot of people have said that, with the magnitude of someone like Luka and AD being shifted so suddenly, GMs are now have the impetus to want to try to make some really drastic moves coming up to the trade deadline. But I think Pat Riley is the stubborn guy who is used to running things a certain way and running a really tight ship and will not want to be fazed by what is going on. Of course, Jimmy Butler's preferred destination is to go to Phoenix. They've been trying to hash out some sort of trade details for that. That hasn't come to fruition as well. But with the trade deadline coming up, I think, Pat Riley is going to be put a little bit under some pressure to do something, because this monumental ship in the NBA landscape is going to prove that, if you want to compete, you're going to make some big moves. And Pat Riley hasn't been able to do that over the last couple of seasons. So it'll be really interesting to see how much he pushes for something for Jimmy Butler. But I think he also wants to kind of stick it to him as well, because Jimmy Butler has, all the fights and everything. I think they probably want to stick it to him as well. Yeah. So it's going to be a long drawn out one for them.
Yeah, we've got to wrap, but I want to get this in 15 seconds from you, because the Lakers at the moment are Pacific Division leaders. They're number 5 in the West. I don't want to suggest that the Lakers will be better with Doncic than they were with Anthony Davis. But do you think the Lakers could win the NBA this year?
Not at all. Not at all. This team is premature. It's not there yet. I think that was the trade before the trade. They need to do something else. Bring in a center, a competent center, to try to help that team to recover some of the defense, because they're defensively just not ready to do anything competitive-wise in the playoffs at this point.
I get you, Alister. Always great getting your expert comments on and views on the NBA. We'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
No problem, guys. See you later.
Yeah, and we'll be back with more on the Sports Max Zone after this.